Greetings, the people of South Africa and the members of the EFF. Welcome to yet another edition of the EFF Special Edition Podcast, which deals with the discussion documents ahead of the Third National People's Assembly, which is now only a week away. Today we have a very special guest, a seasoned media veteran, a doctor, as I'm told recently, Dr. JJ Tabane. Welcome to the EFF Podcast.
Thank you very much now. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, perfect. I think we'll start with introductions. I mean, of course, you've been in the media space for a long time, and we've invited you here today to sort of discuss what are your thoughts on the media terrain today,
Sure.
and what do you think political parties can do better. But before that, maybe let's get a bit of a story of the story of JJ Tabane.
Yeah.
Where do you come from? Who are you? What drew you to the media space?
Yeah. Well, I was born in a small town called Brits in the northwest, and then moved to live in a township called Mututlung. I always get very angry when I get news that Mututlung there's no water or there's terrible service. I get very agitated. There might even people know that they have to answer if they do something wrong in that area. Anyway, we moved to a place called Hebron, still in the northwest, but so closer to Pretoria. And that's where I lived most of my life before going to university. Studied at the University of Limpopo. It was called the University of the North then. Tried to do a BSc, failed at it completely because I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Dunsa didn't want to accept me, and they said, no, go and do what is called a BSc pre-medicine at the University of Limpopo. I went there, failed everything. It's called the Big Four. Chemistry, maths, bioscience. Failed. Only passed something called Special English for Science Students. You don't even have to write the exam for that one. So it was terrible. My parents then said, look, I think you must go to UNISA.
Yeah.
So that we can see you here to study. Don't go too far away.
Maybe the problem is the environment.
You understand? So I went to UNISA. I registered there. They said I must register a BA. I registered it, but it was their BA as far as I was concerned. I was going to register it just to make them happy.
Yeah.
2 months into being at UNISA, the SRC came to fetch me at home. I don't know what they told my parents. Frankly, I don't. I still don't know now. A fellow called, who's now Professor Matebula led a delegation of the SRC to come and fetch me from home. They said, no, we need this guy on campus. My parents released me and said, no, as long as he studies what he registered at UNISA, you can take him. In those days, there was a rule that if you failed everything, you will be expelled from the university. The SRC was for that, and I was a beneficiary of that. That's why I got involved a lot in SRCs after that, in my life throughout being at university and at UWC, where I was very involved with SASCO, was president of SRC twice. But
at
parallel
UWC?
At UWC,
Okay.
yeah. I went there to do a law. When I finished that BA, I gave it to my parents and I said, I'm going to Cape Town now to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
That didn't work out as a law. It was boring. The whole law thing was boring for me.
Yeah.
But I finished, I at least left campus with a B Proc, as they call it. Then after that, I went on to do a master's in political economy and then a PhD in media. But the formative years were actually in the church. When I got involved in politics at TEFLOP, as it was called, I didn't go into Sansko. I didn't understand the politics a bit. So I went into something called YCS, Young Christian Students, and something called Anglican Student Society, where I was a local leader, regional leader, national leader, even international leader.
So what does it take to lead a church society? You must be biblically literate.
Not really. At that time, you will be too young to remember, but all these organizations were banned. Actually,
even the church?
ANC and so on. So the church was the only refuge.
Yes.
So if you wanted, activism was fermented more in the church. So Anglican society was very radical. It was more like a SASCO version, of a Christian organization. So if in our meetings or in our conferences, we used to have big conferences there in the Free State or in other Southern African countries. We'll be talking politics all week there, talking about how the church can make a difference. We're part of debates, for example, about should we have women priests, things like that. There was once an issue. LGBTQ things in the church were rejected. We had to fight that as students. Etawo Makoba, for example, was a chaplain of the students. He was he did BSc at Vets, and then when he became a priest, he was assigned to the youth. And Tutu was a big supporter of the youth. So when I was president of the SRC, he was the archbishop. So we used to really, enter into polemics, and he would say, no, don't be too hard on the bishops, man. We hear you, will support you. So he always sort of moderated between us and fighting the bishops, because the bishops were very conservative at that time. This issue about women priests and women bishops, and was a big issue at that time, and other issues that straddled faith and politics. But my path with Tutu was interesting, because when I became president of SRC at UWC, he was then the chancellor there. He says, "You again, students striking." There was some big strike, that we led there, and when we call a strike, it was serious. In those days, it wasn't just for show or whatever. It was a serious stuff where we were arrested, thrown into prison, university shut down. Students going into the streets, burning things. It was just
you were a radical.
I don't know whether I was a radical, but maybe they thought I was, because I was president twice.
Yeah.
And we used to lead. There was not a quiet time at UWC, like just a maintenance time. Remember, when you are from Teflop, nothing can beat that.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I tried to hide for 2 years to just try and pass.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem with student leaders is that you struggle with your studies when you are running things, because the university was so dependent on SRC that they would half the time not make certain big decisions without checking with you. And then you are sitting on council. It was that time when the transformation was happening post 1990, where you had, SR leaders of students sitting on councils. So you had thick documents to read. At the same time, you got to go to class. So when you fail, the lecturers call you and say, "Hey, what's happening to your grades?"
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, my law lecturers used to say to me, and I asked them sarcastically also, "Would you encourage your students to be part of the student council?" Because I would come and ask to write later, because I'm not ready, and they would say, "Yeah, we can encourage them, but not chairman, not chairman." There was a lecturer who said, "Not president, forget it. You're not gonna make it." And it's true. I mean, my grades, if you look at them now, my academic record look atrocious in the last 2 years.
Later.
No, it didn't improve. So the first 2 years I hid. So I didn't join SASCO, I didn't join anything.
Yeah.
So I was involved with these Anglican students abroad and what. But on campus, I just went to class.
Yeah.
And passed with flying colors for the first 2 years. The second 2 years, I failed with flying colors. That's why I had to convert my degree to be broke and leave. Otherwise, I would still be there trying to get an LLB, So that's just my general background. So I entered politics via the church. And I think that grounded what I believe, what I've done. I somehow hate party line.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why I've not joined the EFF yet. I just hate party line. I want to be able to have independent thought, and and follow what my principles say. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
And this has not always been popular. I mean, I remember in our council, we had a small opposition. So the SASCO had most of the seats, but there were about 2 or 3 people from the opposition. And as president, that helped me, because the SASCO would want to do wrong things. I said, no, but these guys are watching us. We had to expel a few of our people. My deputy was expelled. These things that are happening with Zuma Mbeki are repeating of what used to happen in the student movement. So I had a very popular deputy president who did no work. But if you go to a mass meeting, the place will erupt.
Packed. So it was charismatic.
Yeah, but I had to fire him.
Yeah. So when you're in Teflop, I'm interested, who did you cross paths with politically? Your Peter Mukabas,
No,
Or
not Pitamaga. Pitamaga came once or twice to address us. I still
Yeah.
remember his fiery speech talking about the 4 pillars of the struggle, and so I learned that from him. But the people like Robinson Ramaite,
Yeah.
who were the first sort of leaders of the new SASCO when it moved from SANSCO, and David Makura. David
Yeah.
Makura was one of the big leaders there. Koza, who was I think he's chairman now of the aviation whatever organization, and was recently also chair of NESFAS. Victor Khomeswana, who's in
Yeah.
fact now the head of communications at that university, but he's a big author, very big on Africa, and so those are the people who one can say mentored us into politics. Victor Khomeswana in particular. I mean, I did not in my wildest dreams did I think I'll be an activist that could end up in the SRC as vice president of the SRC.
Yeah.
But he truly mentored me through. I was young when I got to university. I was only 15 when I got to university.
How does that happen?
I went to school at 4, because I turned 5 in July. So I went to school like almost like a year earlier because I was gonna turn 5 in that
Anyway.
year. So and my mother was a principal. It helped. So I said, no, I'm not. I'm not remaining at home. I'm going to school. Then suddenly I was enrolled in sub A in those days, 1977, I think it was. So and there was 1 or 2 grades where I was progressed. So by the time I was at university, I was 15. I turned 16 while at university. So I needed a lot of mentoring, as you can imagine.
Maybe that's why there were challenges. You were a bit young.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, failure is part of success.
Yeah.
If I didn't fail there, I don't know where I would be now.
Yeah.
Would I be a good doctor looking at bloods and cutting people up? I doubt. I doubt very much. So I always say to young people, when you go to first year university, you are exploring what is going to be your path, right? And we need to make sure people understand that. But also there's an issue about career guidance.
Yeah.
At high school, I was in a class of, it was called standard 10B. This is a class where you had people who wanted to be engineers, doctors, people in the sciences, mechanical engineers, chemical, things like that. So I happened to be in that class. And, I then said, also, I also want to be a doctor. But that was not my strength.
Yeah.
It actually wasn't. Even at high school, I mean, I was involved in charity organizations. I started charity organizations where I remember it was called something like Operation Feed the Hungry. This is now you are 14 years and you organize this. I launched the magazine of that high school. Right? Fast forward, now I'm editing leadership magazine. And so what I've been doing since 14. It's not like something I just woke up and I'll start doing. So I came into communication as a byproduct of activism.
Yes.
You understand? So be it at high school, what I'm saying, I had to communicate with the students about this Operation Feed the Hungry. Stand there and say, tomorrow I want you to bring commodities. We could call it that. We collect this commodities.
The food is
stuff.
commodities.
Yeah, we call it commodities. And we'll take them to safe houses, things like that.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a very dichotomous thing because while we were doing that, I was part of something called the Rotary Club. I don't think you even know what that is. A Rotary Club. It's a club of elites.
Yeah.
So I was part of this elites. It's like a club, like here, maybe in Joburg it would be like the Joburg Club or whatever. But they don't play golf. They just have dinners, proper dinners, where they teach you how to, to have a proper dinner. With what you would now call white monopoly, but that's what it was. And then, at the same time, I was a prefect. Now that, you don't sit well with people like Kosas and we didn't care about that. In the school, it was a bubble. You were prefect, means that you were enforcing the law there. You come there with proper uniform, proper haircut like this was not allowed, like yours. I will stop you at the gate saying, oh, chief,
Go back.
Go and, no, you'll be cleaning the toilets and the stoops.
Yeah.
You understand? So when I got to develop, it was such culture shock to find something called the SRC.
Yeah.
These people represent the students. Said no. And there was chaos, parties, and and that's why one of the first things I joined there was to be in a disciplinary committee of
To
the SRC.
discipline people.
Absolutely. And I was in that committee for 3 years. I used to be the one issuing summons.
Yeah.
And develop was like a jungle, eh?
Mm.
No, serious. There were 10,000 people living on campus. There were stabbings and parties, and you had a lot of disciplining to do. So
That
I
you
used to
need to
go
do
around the
instead.
campus to summon people.
Yeah.
I was the clerk of the court of a student discipline, and they took it very serious, because if you didn't, you would then be referred to the university DC, and that one expels you.
Yeah.
So this one, it would just fine you
Mm.
and say, you are found guilty, you are fined 50 rand.
Mm. So what happened? When did the transition to media happen? Like, what was your first job? Was it radio? Was it TV?
No.
Were you an intern?
No. So the media thing was accident.
Mm.
That happened later in life.
Mm.
What my first job was to be a spokesman of a minister.
Yeah. Which one?
Right? The minister Mohammed Vali Musa.
Okay.
He taught me everything I know about the media. But it was because I just got a law degree,
Mm.
right? So I was looking for any job.
Yeah.
I was expecting my firstborn. I got married on campus, by the way.
Tell us
That's
about
the
that.
Well, my girlfriend got pregnant, and both our dads are priests.
Mm.
So you can just imagine.
Yeah.
When you go and report it, they say, "What? You must get married now." So I got married just as my term ended, and Zizi Koda took over from me as president.
At Bush.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got married. That was my first order of business after being in the SRC. So now I was looking for a job.
Mm.
I'm married. The baby's coming in November, and I've just finished my degree, and I have this wife, and this young son is coming. I don't have a job.
Mm.
First I started a business, and that business was to train SRCs on how to be better SRCs.
Yeah.
But the way we did it was I selected former SRC presidents, treasurers, and so on, and then got them to go and train around the country. We went to various universities and so on. When we get there, we charge. We give you an invoice of 2,000 as the
Yeah.
SRC. At least that could pay some rent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those amounts were big at that time. It's long ago. So that was my first entry. Then, as I was doing that, I got an interview with Mohammed Vali Musa via ANC deployment. This was cater deployment.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I went there. I had a 5-minute interview. This guy just took out my academic record and said, I see you. At least you got some good marks. Although the first year
Here
was
and there.
terrible. But,
Yeah.
but at least I can see some 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
He was a very sort of straight aligned kind of guy. I respect him a lot. He taught me a lot of stuff. Interview me 5 minutes and then send me to Pax Mankatlan, who was the presidential spokesperson at the time, to also interview me so he can give him his view. Get to Pax, very ready for an interview. And the guy says to me, "Hey, Chief, this is not an interview, it's a meeting." How? He said, now I didn't know whether to be nervous or not nervous. After that meeting, he phoned Mohammed Vali Musa and said, "Take him or I'm taking him." That's how I got my first job.
Yeah.
When they called me to say I'm starting, I was in the Durban University of Technology. They're training the SRC there. It was a Saturday. They called me to say, "You are starting on Monday." I had to come back home to go and look for some decent clothes, not clothes of students, clothes of somebody who works for a minister.
Yeah.
And shopping on the Sunday afternoon. Monday, I was in Cape Town in the office. By the way, it was a wrong office because it was during recess. So I had to come to Pretoria. I got to work.
So you went to Cape Town?
I went to Cape Town because I lived in Cape Town. So
Yeah.
that's where I had my interview.
Yeah.
So I assumed that's where I'm going. I found nobody there. Then they said, no, they are in Pretoria for the next 10 days. Off to Pretoria, I was there. That's how my communication career started. The first week was rough. You the minister used to say to me, you're not Sasko anymore, man. You can't write the statement.
So the
like
language was.
you are writing for a minister.
Yeah.
You have to tone it down.
Yeah.
You know how government speak. I
Yeah.
had to learn that very fast.
Diplomatic.
That's how my communication journey started. When I left there, I went to be a communication advisor for the Chamber of Mines. Before that, by the way, Mohammed Vali Musa was moved to a new portfolio of environment. And through that portfolio, he hosted what was called the World Summit on Sustainable Development. That's when my international footprint started, because I was head of communication for that whole World Summit, coordinating almost 100 communicators from around the world. It's like what's happening with the G20. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
I hope they have their act together.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of work. And it's not just on the week when the conference is happening. It's a build-up. It's a whole year's program, meetings here and elsewhere. So that's how I then got my fingers into communications. Was communication advisor for the Chamber of Mines after that. Was communications vice president of the South African Airways.
Okay.
And it was a time when they had a strike like they're having today in 2005. It was a big thing. That thing catapults you. Be doing close on 300 interviews with international media, because it's chaos there with passengers aggro, and you learn the art of communicating direct communication
under volatile conditions.
Yeah. So not just media, but even the passengers, the customers.
Yeah.
I had an excellent boss there called Kaya Ngula, who exposed me to the entire airline. So I was doing communication, but I ended up as head of customer care, head of airports, head of even airport security, believe it or not. That's why when I left there, I could only go and run my own business, which is what I did after that. And the rest is history. So the media thing was an accident in that I was more into as a writer. After leaving SAA in 2006, I started writing columns for the City Press, for something called the Huffington Post, Mail Guardian, Thought Leader, and I built up my post. I've written probably countless articles, probably more, touching 1,000 since I started my first article. So the government then started a radio station called Ubuntu Radio. I went there. My first show was there called Frank Dialogue, which is
the one that we know today.
Yeah, but it started at Ubuntu Radio.
What year was that?
2013.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my first shows was actually to deal with Mandela's passing. And I think it was my first or second show. But I used to record it here at the zoo. There's a Rosebank Zoo here. There's a studio there that I used to own. I just record it there and send it on Dropbox. And then someone took notice. Kevin McCurry took notice and say, "Hey, Papa, you need to come and just do this every day for us." And that's how Power Perspective was born.
On Power FM.
It was huge. It turned the graph of radio upside down. The graph of radio says breakfast first, the rest later.
Yeah.
There, 8 o'clock.
In the morning.
No, 8 o'clock at night.
At night.
It was a night show.
Yeah.
We shut down the airwaves for 4 hours. That's how powerful that show was. And that's how my media career really was born. Then from there it went to Newsroom Africa, then now to ENCA for the last 5 years. It's our on season 5 now. Yeah.
How's that been?
It's been okay. I generally do what I like, and they let me. From time to time.
So there was a time we thought they had fired you. We were ready to go there.
Yeah, you always think I'm fired when I'm on leave. I mean, I don't understand whether I can't take leave or what.
Yeah.
But I did make a joke of it when I came back to say, well, I know I do say fireable things.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, I'll be fired. But in showbiz, particularly in media, your key capital are the numbers.
Yeah.
You understand? So, the people at NCA may tolerate me just because of the numbers.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, I should have been fired long ago. Right? But the numbers speak for themselves. In television, you're looking at what is called the marketplace. So at 8 o'clock, there's a market. There's a 100% market. You got to fight to be 50 and above.
Yeah. And you're competing with a lot at that slot. The soap operas.
Yeah. But it's no competition, unfortunately. If you look at the trends, I'm not talking just to brag. Yeah. Over the last 5 years, almost every day we win that slot.
Yeah.
Once or twice there may be an odd, the occasion where the SABC number 1 or Newsroom number. But generally, we're 50 up to 90% of the market. There was a show that was 90%, which was very controversial. The show that there was a debate between the Palestinians and the Jews. I can imagine an hour and a half of just chaos on set.
We had blocked it for the past 5 years, so I'm hearing it for the first time.
Well, you must unblock it soon.
Yeah.
So it's been okay. I mean, truly they kept their weight. Norman, who's the MD there, recruited me. I was at home, hiding from COVID. And he said, no, please, man, join us. We won't tell you what to do. That was the preamble. Come. I said, oh, good. I don't like to be told what to do on media. I think a lot of people fought, for our freedom. The Nakasas of this world.
Yeah.
And all the luminaries fought so that I can say really whatever I like.
Freedom of speech.
You understand?
Yeah.
So if you call me and then you want to tell me what to do, it's going to be problematic. They knew it was going to be problematic. They knew my work and so on. And truly, to be fair to them, they have not managed to control the guests that you see on my shows because I want them there.
Yeah.
Any guest I don't want,
What happened with the other episodes?
Well, it's in the archives.
Yeah. One day we'll see it.
I don't know.
Because what's interesting
I don't own my platform. If I owned it, you would have seen it. It was a 2-hour long interview.
Yeah.
Right? Unfortunately, there was no appetite to flight it. And, there were all sorts of reasons given. I don't want to go into it except to say, whatever. Yeah. I'm continuing with the work. I see the work that I do in the media as a mission, as a ministry almost. Right? Because that's how I got into radio. Just to tell a quick story, when Given called me, I had not spoken to him for 3 years. We had the business fall out and so on. And I was wondering, why is this guy calling me? And even after he made an offer, I said, well, this guy thinks I'm going to work for him. He must be crazy. So I said to him, I'll talk to you when I come. I'm on my way to Ethiopia. I was attending in Ethiopia on the sideline of the AU, a Christian conference. I went there with a lady called Apostle Gobodo, who was my spiritual leader. I went to this conference, and on the way to the conference, on the flight, I tell her, hey man, give him a carry for. Can you believe this guy phoned me to say I must come and work for him? And she didn't respond. No? We get to this conference. One of the things that we discussed, I didn't even know this was going to be discussed there, was the issue about the airwaves. And the conference was saying the people of faith have left the airwaves to the people of the world. And then we get surprised when people don't respond well to the gospel.
Yeah.
Because we're not there where the damn people are, where things are happening, social media, radio in particular, they said, because it's still a very powerful medium.
Yeah.
Very powerful theater of the mind. I was sitting next to that apostle. She just leaned to me and said, there is your answer. That's how I could have rejected what was offered. Because I knew she's a terrible manager, terrible fellow to work with. And so I knew that if I go in there, I must go because I've got a mission, not because I want to work for him.
Yeah.
So I came back and I said to him, let's do it. This was before even he told me, I'm going to pay you so many peanuts or whatever he was offering. It's the first peanuts, So, but I have him to be grateful for, because if he didn't do that, I don't know whether I would have broken into TV. Because when I was in Power, I was recruited by the SABC.
Yeah.
When Power fired me, eventually, I was at Newsroom.
Yeah.
In no time. When I finished season 1 at Newsroom, I took leave because of COVID and whatever. Just long leave to do other things. Like I took up a job as editor of Leadership magazine. Then when I was there, Newsroom, sort of ENCA, headhunted me. If I didn't do Power, none of that would have happened.
None of it would have happened.
Even the leadership team would not have happened, because the people I interview in the leadership magazine are the same people that I've interviewed through the years. They respond well to me. When I say, please, Chief, want to write for us?
Yeah.
For the magazine, or when they come to the show, we can take some of what they're saying, they summarize it, it's an article, and that's what has lifted the profile of that magazine over the last 4 years or so. So that's a long story about the media. It was really an accident, but as people of faith, we don't think anything's an accident.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
and a lot of people ask me, I mean, you are taking all these guys, we tepileng. I don't know whether you understand this one, but it's like,
Yeah. Well, why? What do you believe in?
you understand? When I say, no, we're covered with the blood.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
You understand? That's why I can call you out, from your president to anybody in the world. I call you out one by one, and I think people have come to understand that.
yeah.
Although I'm opinionated, I can be opinionated across the whole political spectrum.
Yeah. No, you're a unique figure, I think, in the media space in that sense. And I think it's going to sort of help me understand something, because I'm interested in your thoughts on whether these type of restrictions within traditional media, right? Because there's things you can do and can't do when you work for broadcasters like the likes of ENCA or SABC or the radio platform. I mean, the story of Megji, he'll tell you that his success right now is based on the fact that he's unfiltered, uncensored, unlimited.
Absolutely.
And I think the major debate, and especially within our own conference happening now, is that there's a dwindling in traditional media. I don't think it's statistics orientated.
Yeah.
Because the radio still gets the numbers, certain television programs still get the numbers, but gradually people are sourcing information in different ways. And how do you think that has changed?
No, I think, and I think that is good. I mean, first of all, every media has an owner. And the people who own the media, half the time they're not owning it just for fun. They're owning it because they want to exercise influence.
Yes.
Right? And some owners understand that better than others. Others are more extreme than others. Right? For example, I know that Iqbal is not joking.
Yeah, he's not playing around.
You understand?
You know what he's going to say every week. Once he's going to talk about the banks, or he's going to talk about...
No, he wants the people to pursue a clear transformation agenda.
Yeah.
You may not like him. He may be overbearing and what. He's a very exuberant character. We know him. I think I actually like him, I'm more attracted to people who have their own mind, a mind of their own, not people who are controlled somewhere.
Yeah.
So at least you may hate his views or even his conduct towards his journalists, but at least you know where he stands.
Yeah.
He's not gonna pretend to you. These other platforms, you find that they pretend. You find out by accident that actually we're opposed to this one and we like that one.
Yeah.
Right. And I try. I've always had a night show. I always say, nobody will hire me during the day because I'll be shouting at people in traffic. They don't want that. So I try to avoid the politics of the newsroom. I come there. I'll be doing other things. I run a communications company. I edit these magazines. I'm a professor at 2 universities. I'm busy. So I don't have time to be there with office politics. While I'm doing all those things, I'm preparing for my show, which is unscripted. No script, no auto cue. It's what I feel on that day, but I'm prepared. People sometimes mistake my shouting as it's just shouting. No, I'm prepared. I know exactly what I'm going to be saying. That's why all the people who try to sue me have failed.
Yeah.
All of them.
Who's tried to sue you?
Oh, numerous people. I mean, the minister of... who's the minister? Minister of Ngesi.
Oh, Tulas.
Yeah, I called him incompetent. I mean, I didn't even insult him. I mean, the others have called corrupt and what have you. I just said he's incompetent.
Yeah.
And he wrote a long letter saying this is beyond the freedom of expression. I mean, some of these ministers, frankly, are confused about the fact that they work for us.
Yes.
They're not kings and queens. And sometimes they take offense, And also, secondly, there is a level of what we call difference in our society. That's why journalists sometimes are made to be polite and so on by the owners. Who say, don't rock the boat, etc. Unfortunately, media is expensive. So you got to balance the interest. And that's why one of the first questions I asked the ENCA guys when they call me, I said to them, who is a holy cow? Tell me now.
Yeah, so that you know.
I just said, I'm tired of being fired. Just tell me who's a holy cow so I can avoid that person.
Yeah.
But I was serious. If they said to me, no, Vodacom gives us 300 million rand in advertising and so on. I mean, even if you have to criticize them, hambakatli. I'm not an unreasonable guy. I would have listened to that, right? Because if that buys me the space to do all other things, why not? So somebody asked me, and I gave a lecture at the University of Botswana about telling the African story, and I was saying, what we need is an African voice.
Yeah.
We can't be told by CNN and Al Jazeera and BBC about Africa. We need an African channel, international, no jokes, not a small YouTube here. I'm talking about a serious international channel to compete BBC everywhere in the world. But no way we're gonna get the money. Money is not the problem. The problem is a shortage of ideas and people getting the things done. There's somebody who will sign a check. I already have 2 backers who say we'll sign a check of $500 million for you to do that station. Obviously, they must pay. I mean, you can be a backer by mouth, you know. So, but they could say there was one person who said, "Oh, there's a 3rd backer," but this backer says you can cover everything else, but not about my company. I said, so why not? Give me the money.
Yeah.
Because how many companies are there to talk about and countries to talk about, issues to talk about? Why must I not have that platform just because I wanted to talk about it? I don't even know whether he's newsworthy, that person. You know, so I said to them, no, there's not. The money is not an issue, right? It is a shortage of ideas. Why don't we have that channel now when we have had so many luminaries in media in this country, in the continent? Are you telling me then the people couldn't talk and say, let's just get together and do a Pan-Africanist, channel that can tell the African story, And I digress. But going back to the issue about ownership, so there's poor diversity of ownership in our media, right, and that affects the content because you can tell that these ones, are particularly anti-establishment or are pro-establishment. And that shouldn't be that way. A media should be able to be objective, etc. In other countries, they don't care about that. In the UK, in the US, they tell you Fox is for Trump, CNN is against. Full stop. We know when you switch on there what propaganda you're going to hear. Here they pretend otherwise, right? And then there are slip shows. Mail and Guardian in 2009, when Mbeki was about to ascend, they had a big headline: "Is this man fit to rule?"
Zuma.
No, Mbeki. Forget about Zuma. Mbeki, Zuma, they harassed him. You remember that Zapiro fellow who drew a shower? For years, the people had to beg him to say, "Please remove the shower," and then he had to remove it and put it still in the cartoon and say, "I'm removing it temporarily. When you do something wrong, I'll put it back." Now they are on to Paul Mashatile. Mashatile unmasked.
Yeah. Every week it was News 24.
Yeah, News 24. They have a logo. They have a logo to get Paul out of the Union building.
Yeah.
Understand? And that's not supposed to be the role of the media. Yes, you can show us where things are going wrong, but to have a campaign, even you have a logo
on people.
And the reason I raised this on my show was that they're actually very mistaken that they can determine who's going to be the president of the ANC.
Yeah.
They failed in all those instances. They failed on Mbeki. They failed on Zuma. I mean, Zuma, as far as I'm concerned, was the worst president, but they still failed. Everybody was shocked at Polokwane. And he still went on to be president twice.
Yeah.
Despite all the bad publicity. In fact, Zuma was one who sued cartoonists. It was quite a chaotic thing. And when he started office, there was this big discussion by the ANC, led, interestingly, by Floyd. I don't know where Julius was in that mix, but Floyd was one of those who led this thing about the media tribunal. They want to bring the media here and shambok them if they say wrong things. I mean, it's just
Blade,
crazy.
was it not Blade who said there must be a law against
insulting the president?
The president, yeah.
You don't know the half of it. I mean, when I wrote my book, my first book, let's talk frankly, actually outside it is a cartoon of all your leaders. Julius is there, Helen is there, Zuma is there. So I cartoon them. So the book is a cartoon because the book is written in a form of a satire.
Yeah.
I was summoned to Lutula House. I was summoned by Jesse Duarte, may her soul rest in peace.
Yeah.
To say, we don't know where we stand with you. Where do you stand with you? How can you insult the head of state day in and day out?
But you're not employed by them.
I know, but you have to listen to the elders sometimes. I listened to her and I just said, sorry,
The same with, were you telling us a story, the same with the late Praveen?
Yeah, the late Praveen also, he agreed ultimately to an interview, which I think I must play one of these days again. But he had this idea that I was a state capturer of some sort just because I was in proximity to Minister Mutambi at that time. I was there as a professional, actually working for brand South Africa, not even Mutambi, which happened to fall under Mutambi. So he always had this idea that I'm this corrupt chap, etc. Until I explained to him, no, actually, Mutambi found me there. I don't even know him from above. So then he relaxed and said, oh, okay, let's do the interview. Let's go to Kusile and do the interview there, So I suppose when he left, we were on sort of better terms than before, because I chased him so many years for him to come to the end. So there's a lot of intersections, if you like, between ownership, which is quite undiverse, and what then comes out as content. But our quality of journalism is very high in this country. When I did my PhD research, I went to examine this issue about the media tribunal and whether or not the ANC had a case. Because they were saying that media is getting away with murder. Actually, in terms of actual hardcore research, right? And this was largely quantitative. Like I went to get articles, negative articles, but articles that were taken to the press ombudsman. 70% of those complaints found in favor of the media. Only 30% they had to apologize or whatever, for whatever mishap or whatever misprint, if you can call it. So the generalized the media is always on rampage. It's actually a lazy thing. You got to do your PR. Because the media is not homogeneous. Maybe there are 3,000 journalists in this country. Not all of them are anti-EFF or anti-DA or anti-ANC. You got to find the ones that think like you, or that sympathize with your position on things, and then build your PR from there, which I think the EFF has done very well, largely. I mean, I know you boycotted ENC. That's for another day. I don't want to comment on that now. Because I think it's possible to fix it, right? So that's in terms of diversity now of views. Poor diversity in terms of ownership, but very good diversity in terms of journalists, women, journalists, black, white. That's changing. Editors, I think I'm not even, I'm trying to close my eyes to how many white editors still remain, maybe 2 or 3. Right? Generally, we've tried to transform that, but we haven't transformed the ownership
patterns, and this determines the biases.
That's why then the birth of podcasts.
Right?
And I think it's a lot of clutter, but it's necessary because freedom of speech cannot just rely on people with deep pockets only. Right? And I think I want to congratulate all the podcasters, the way that they have done this, and I'll be following very soon to do the same.
You're gonna do your own podcast?
Absolutely. It's going to be the biggest podcast, but let's not say that yet. Not because of the fact that it will be better than the others, but because my thinking is, you've got all this mainstream media, etc. There is 200 community radio stations in this country. In fact, I think there are more. There are 200 that function. Nobody has tapped onto that market and get them to be a contender like this podcast. Josie FM has 700,000 listeners. Alex, 350. Theta in the Val, another probably touching 500,000. Right? I've mentioned only about 4 or 5. So far, I've been able to say to them, hey guys, Thursdays, when I'm off TV, let's do frank dialogue on your radio. And all of us, let's connect to one station.
Stream.
I'll invite the top guys who I've been talking to, and we started with Julius Malema, and that was huge. I mean, that had 8 million views when we talked to Julius Malema. He launched us into the frank dialogue, and from there, we are now sitting with requests. Can I also have my own frank dialogue? I mean, you had Mbalula.
I remember the last
time
we
had frank dialogue.
dialogue.
Yeah, he didn't know it's not free of charge. So, the NC doesn't like to pay for anything.
Yes.
So, I'm not apologetic that's my business. Frank dialogue is my business. and I'm gonna use it I'm gonna progress it into a podcast.
We had so not to cut you, a funny interaction with the SABC. I don't know if you recall about the background.
Yeah, they cut me
now
out.
They're trying to cut you out because
can you
the banner of Frank Dialogue and what.
No, I think our Sophie is tired. Our Sophie is tired. I mean, you can't behave like a teenager. You understand? I've invited you. It's my platform. I've invited the EFF and I invited fellow media practitioners.
Yeah.
How do you come there and say, but why is JJ's background? But it's not a press conference. It's my gig.
Yeah.
So I think she was confused. And she cut me out. Now I'm talking, asking the questions, but on SABC I don't appear.
Yeah.
So there's also that pettiness. Why can't we have a show where all the channels come because it's newsworthy?
Yeah.
Why do you want to say no? It's us. We were trying to defend our territory and what? It's madness.
Maybe let's get into that. If the challenge in the private sort of media space is ownership and the biases and the pockets, what's the challenge at SABC, do you think? Because we saw now Monare just resigned after a vetting process. I'm not sure what's behind that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think I won't put too much drama on that particular resignation. I'll talk about SABC as a public broadcaster versus as a state broadcast. So the ANC over the years, and I'm talking about I said 30 years, they've never been able to, how can I put it? They've not been able to reconcile themselves with the fact that they don't own the SABC. They're not supposed to. In fact, there was a law that was passed that they should be far away from a political control. And unfortunately, they have, over the years, been able to appoint cronies into the board, into the executive. That narrative has changed. In the last board, we had a guy called Bongo Musa Makatin. Brilliant chap, coming from business, didn't take nonsense from them. And he managed to finish his term, not because they didn't try removing him many times. Yeah. And I thought that the SABC is beginning to turn their corner, right? Because then he could appoint whoever he wants on the executive, obviously checks with the minister and so on, but it's still his and his board's decision. And that's where the rot was happening, right? The ANC headquarters was truly interfering, and that's one I can tell you without fear of contradiction. I don't know, remember when Zizi Kore was a spokesperson. Came to the SABC, there's something bizarre. The ANC 66%, so it must get 66% coverage.
Oh,
said, well, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's supposed to serve all the people.
Yeah, and also
not the ones who are in power.
The SABC is not covering positive messages.
It's nonsense because the SABC had a show called something like Service Delivery something. So obviously the people talk. They're not talking for the ANC. They talk for themselves to say, there's this chaos, there's potholes and what have you. And those are the real issues that people are facing. So if you are a party that is tone deaf, you can't even listen to your own people through your own channel. So they came there and said bizarre things. When they lost elections the last time, they blamed the SABC, if you recall, and so on. The reality is, I think the SABC has changed. I think there was a head of news who they got rid of at some point, but I think Pattis was back on the board. I think she managed to generally resist interference. Although I know for sure that Jesse Duarte tried to get rid of me there when I was, because the chairman, who happens to be a friend, called me every Monday to say, hey, I'm getting calls every Monday because my show was on a Sunday. Can you please just help us? Carno, how do I help you? Because I can help you by not being myself. Right? So he couldn't defend me even though he was the board. I had to eventually leave despite the high numbers that were there. Right? So I know the interference. I'm not talking second-hand information. Right? But I managed to say, there was a fellow there called Nyana Molite who used to head up Morning Live, and then eventually when I was recruited, he was part of recruiting me to the SABC, and he was helping me to produce that show. And that's when I realized that sometimes it's about self-censorship. It's not even about the board or the CEO saying, don't do this. Because at that time, because I was still young on TV and so on, I used to write down my intro and send it to him. And then he would say, do you really have to put it like that?
Yeah.
Can't you just change it a little bit,
Make it palatable.
Yeah, make it palatable. I think that you are right. They still had the phone call even after if they saw the original script. I'll be fired like on the spot,
Mm.
So that showed me that there's a level of self-censorship
Yeah.
that tends to be at the SABC. I'm not sure what's going to happen now with the DA minister and whether that will change the dynamics. But my view is that the SABC is on a good trajectory now. The current CEO, I don't know whether you know the current CEO, Colonel Sachabiet. She is a bomb from outer space. She's going to turn that place around.
Yeah.
Not just as a credibility of the place to continue from where Makatini left off, but also commercially.
Yeah.
She has done it at Super Sports around the world. She's done it at MTN. She's won awards of doing the good work, and I have absolute confidence in her. I mean, under her, I could go and work for the SABC tomorrow.
Yeah.
She is absolutely brilliant. So I'm sure between her and Moshosho there couldn't be a chemistry. It happens.
Find each other.
In any event, when a new CEO comes, you must appoint your own people.
Yeah.
Because next time you'll be blaming us to say, oh, I found these people here and so on. So I think she must appoint her own people. She must appoint her own head of news, start appointing a fresh cohort of journalists who can actually respect the public and do their work, etc. I see they've recruited somebody like Clement Manyata.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can see the direction.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I just hope they don't oppress him there like they tried to oppress Sizwe of Welsh. You understand? So I think the SABC is turning the corner. We just need now political parties, as you had asked earlier, have to build relationships with all these channels. Right? Media coverage is all about relationships.
Yeah.
If I edit the paper and I receive huge number of unsolicited articles, some of them written very badly, some what we call a spray paint, they've sent it to 20 people. The editors will sit there and try to sift through this nonsense, literally. Right? But if I see your name, because I know you call me to say, hey, Chief, would like to publish and so on. When you think, I respond better because I say, we've spoken, you know my thinking, I know yours. When I see your article, it's likely to make it into my paper.
Yeah.
But if I don't know you, I mean, there are political communicators, not just in government, even outside, who don't know who's the editor of the Sunday Times.
Yeah. Then they'll complain that.
And the editor of Sunday is 2 weeks old, by the way.
Yeah.
Just been appointed. He was editor of the Times Live. He's now been appointed editor. I doubt any of you have sent him a letter of congratulations. You understand? These are small things.
Yeah, no,
these
true.
Are
it's
human
true.
beings.
Build a repertoire.
You understand? Now you're gonna call him when there's trouble at home. You say, "Hey, Chief, can we be covered?"
Yeah.
They don't know who you are. First of all, say, "Who are you?" Now that's already half the battle lost. If they don't know who you are, they don't know what quality of work they must expect from you, etc. Right? So a media system is such that we need to work together. My PhD studies were labeled aptly bridging the gap, and I was talking about the relationship between the state and the media. How do we bridge that gap? And I've got a whole chapter that gives communicators, if you like, tips of how to go about this scientific task. Because a lot of people think communication, they can just grab anybody in the street, some comrade. Like I was appointed. I don't studied communication at all.
Yeah.
I just happened to have 2 degrees, and I spoke English. And then they said, no, this guy can be a spokesperson. I had to learn on the job.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with learning on the job. But in general terms, you shouldn't be appointing people who are not qualified for big jobs like being head of communication, being a spokesperson of government, etc. Right? Similarly, in the media, there's a need for capacity building. There are lots of junior journalists who have no clue. You have to spoon feed them.
Yeah.
If you ask them, if you say to them, there's a report commissioned by former deputy president in Mbeki, they're confused immediately.
Yeah.
Because maybe they were not born when Mbeki was deputy president. He commissioned a report on communication. It was called ComTask. If you Google it, you can Google Communications 2000. It analyzes how communication works around the world, how the relationships between media and government can be done in a democratic era. The past era, it was propaganda. We had what was called communication service, South African communication service, which was there just to say apartheid is okay. I mean, in summary, You understand? So obviously there was a need to say, let's have something new. The pity is that after that something new was established, it didn't have a leader for 10 years. So Jesus hasn't had a permanent leader for 10 years. Imagine. The last permanent leader probably was Jimmy Man.
Yeah.
When he was still
Because
called
who do we
Jim.
know since him?
Then there was, then they bothered Sis Pumla Williams.
Yeah.
You know, she was not her strength. She was a CFO or whatever. She did her best. But even there, she knew she was there for 2 minutes and then had to retire. Government doesn't take communication seriously.
Yeah. And
Now they are waking up now because the DA is giving them a run for their money.
They have to figure out how to communicate.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the worst things about it, I think we were reflecting on it with Leanne, is even public campaigns. You know, there used to be strong campaigns in South Africa. Arrive Alive. Those
Masakani. When I started my career, now they have disappeared.
There's nothing.
They have disappeared. You say campaign, they don't know what you're talking about.
And then they lambast you. For example, it was about the switching off of the meters, for example. Now recently, that whole
terrible communication,
terribly managed.
And it shows when people are now frustrated and people die on queues. And you can avoid those things by constantly communicating. That's why I feel strongly about the fact that community media has been neglected.
Yeah.
You guys in political parties, you don't take them serious. When you have a small budget of your elections, you don't spend money on them. You spend money on the big TV ads and what have you. But that's where your constituency is. Your constituency is actually there. Listen, I'll give you just an example of the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that just by combining those 5 stations here in Gauteng, we were able to get 3 million people listening at the same time. And that's how I don't want my podcast to be listened to by YouTube. There's already a lot of YouTube content that's there. It's going to be streamed everywhere, on Twitter, on everywhere, but it will also go to the people. And when I have my dream fully materialized, there will be 30 stations at least. And others will be welcome to join. But these 30 are going to sit with them. We've already worked with some of them in a pilot that has seen Frank Dialogue on your radio really raise its profile. So we can't blame the situation or the diversity. We must do something.
Yeah.
Those of us who are in the space must start thinking about, all right, how are we going to make sure that the African story is told differently? And I'm directing the African story, not South Africa.
Yeah.
It's going to be an international podcast. It's going to be talking to heads of states around the continent. You know, I was in Zambia just 2 weeks ago. I was in Botswana a week ago. I work with the University of Botswana. We will be talking to the presidents of Namibia, of Lesotho, and just to get to understand how where's Africa going? Because we are not an island here in the corner. You know, I hear a lot of people, and I don't want to go into a debate, who seem to be confused about the fact that we are in Africa. And so our success is the success of the continent. The failure of the continent will be our fail. Right? And so if we talk to ourselves as a what do you call it, a chamber, what do you call it, a hollow chamber, it doesn't help. We've got to be able to get South Africans to understand how people in Lesotho are thinking. And maybe they can start traveling. There are lots of South Africans who don't even have a passport. They have not been to Lesotho, where you can walk. Where you can walk from Lady Brand to Lesotho. You don't need the transport.
Cross the fence, come back in the evening.
You understand? You can walk to Mabatu when you are in Botswana, or on Gaborone. You can walk to Swaziland if you are in Mpumalanga. So it's not like it's so out of reach, it's expensive. No, it's just a mindset. A mindset that actually doesn't even get you to wake, to stand up, go to Home Affairs. It takes 2 weeks, they'll give you a passport. And you can travel anywhere. If you are able to travel to Cape Town, which is a 2-hour flight, you can travel to Zambia, which is also a 2-hour flight. I was actually pleasantly surprised. It was the first time I was in Lusaka myself, 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was further in terms of flights. It's only 2 hours, you are there. And
We're
suddenly,
closer than we think.
you understand?
Yeah.
So our futures are very intertwined. Very, very intertwined. The borders are truly superficial. I mean, how do you explain a border between Mpumalanga and Swaziland, or Eswatini? How do you explain that border? Because those people are speaking the same language. Relatives are on either side
They
of
have
the fence.
children on the other
Yeah,
side.
the same thing in Maseru and Lady Brand and at Mabatu, and I was
Lesotho,
just making
Matatiele,
fun of
same thing.
my brother studied in Mafikeng at the what was called University of Botswana then. I have a niece in Gaborone,
Yeah.
literally. And unfortunately, he only knew after 20 years that he has a child in Gaborone. That person saw me on the cover of a newspaper. No, in fact, of a magazine, and say, "Hey, man, this person looks like me." And the mother had to explain. She say, "Hey, no, it's this brother." That's how intertwined we are. Very intertwined.
Yeah.
Anything that says, "Oh, Abraham Ben," that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You understand? It's crazy, but we understand that we can't all be in the same thinking level at the same time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to take people with us, right? The same way that when it was hot here, we ran to all these countries and we were hidden there. It may be that some of those people there also thought, "Who are these people that bring us problems, man?"
Yeah.
Because Saddam is gonna shoot us,
Coming
which
here
is
and
what
bombing.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saddam shot people bombarded people in Maseru, killed people there because they were looking for South Africans. I don't know what happened in Botswana. I think it's a similar thing, right? And in other frontline states, they were under fire, right? So I can imagine the discussions that were happening.
They were
there.
having, yeah.
To say, "Hey, this government is harboring terrorists." And now we are under fire as a community. People forget that quickly. They forget that actually there are so many of our leaders who were hidden by these countries that today we look down on.
Yeah.
And we feel we feel inconvenienced,
Yeah.
because they are here, they've crossed the border, because those countries are in a mess and we fail to intervene, as friends of those countries. I mean, I'm very clear about it. Zimbabwe wouldn't be this mess if we didn't have the so-called quiet diplomacy.
Yeah.
Eswatini is next.
Yeah.
They're killing people there, killing opposition. Have you ever had the president say a bad word or a negative
He
word?
invites him over, actually.
No, he goes there
goes
and
there.
have tea where there.
Yeah.
They say SADC is hosted there. Now, the same way that SADC has just been hosted in Zimbabwe, where there are journalists, as we speak, and opposition leaders in prison.
Yeah.
And then they've got the courage to go to far lands. They're going to intervene at Palestine. They're failing here next door.
Yeah.
Where you don't need an hour's flight to go there and say to that despot in Eswatini, sorry.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
Okay. Maybe in closing, because I can't have you and not ask you about the GNU.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about it? I mean, there's a popular narrative now, which I think a lot of us are starting to speak against, about what actually must constitute progressives, what constitutes Black unity. We've been invited to Black unity by people who governed South Africa for a very long time. So your thoughts on what's the future of this so-called government national unity? What must we do as self-proclaimed progressives in order to ensure that we keep them accountable?
Well, you must unite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a clever thing to tell you. You must unite. What's happening between you and the MK is unacceptable, and it's going to take us backwards. That's what I can tell you straight without any fear of contradiction. Because my understanding, and I don't think I was wrong, is that you had in mind that there must be collaboration at some point.
Yeah.
You always had that in mind, right? What has happened now with people jumping ship and so on was not part of the script and was not part of the plan.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you can reverse that, right? But this country is in trouble. That's why the issue about GNU, because GNU is really a status quo issue.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the DA did not demand that the ANC should change any policy as part of the negotiations of the GNU. They didn't say NHI or nothing, or Bella or nothing. They didn't say those things. They were already in court anyway fighting those things. So all they wanted was the power so that they can be able to demonstrate they can do a better job.
Yeah.
So they had to think carefully to say, let's not make anything to be a deadlock so that they can keep the EFF and MK out. Because if the GA refused and said we'll remain opposition, the ANC was going to be left with no choice but to come to EFF and MK and create a government that we hope, in my mind, I hope there's a government that would be able to better address what I call the time bombs of our time.
Yeah.
65% youth unemployment, 40% unemployment in general terms. Poor economic growth. I mean, we're growing at 0% for how long? You know, I mean, the World Bank even revised our growth targets of 0.3 or something. They revised it back to 0.2 or something like that. That's how terrible the situation is. We're the worst unequal society
in the world.
in the world. If you just look at those four things, the GNU, in their program of action, it's not that they're going to address those things.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to spend the next 5 years fighting. They're fighting on their Bella. UNISU is very ugly. It's not like we can, ignore it. You understand? NHI, I understand they are having, literally insulting matches amongst each other because the others don't see why you should have universal coverage. It's a polarized policy.
Please.
Employment equity, the DA is in court. But none of those things, I have to tell you, will collapse the GNU. I know that you guys would like it to collapse. But they don't collapse on those things. Why? Because these people now have power. They never had. The NC was supposed to be in the opposition benches at 40. Right? Now they have 75% of the cabinet. Why would they let the GNU collapse? They can't, because it means that they've secured their patronage for the next 5 years. The DA similarly. They don't want to go back to the opposition benches. They've got 6 ministries. And ministries chosen carefully.
Yeah, no, that wasn't a mistake.
You understand? They didn't just try to get us in culture, like it and be excited. They wanted to get stuff that's at the heart of the economy, agriculture.
Yeah.
I'm told agriculture did poorly in the last quarter. Where they
it declined.
The DA won't issue a statement about that. But let's tell them. And it's nothing to do with John. I don't think he knows anything about agriculture. You know, it's a reality of our time, right? Telecommunications. Who on earth, whatever that person was drinking at the negotiations, must be very strong to hand over. You are governing and you hand over propaganda to the opposition.
It was absolute madness.
And you hand over, forget about the SABC, you hand over digital technology.
The first thing
where the world is going.
Yeah, they bring Elon Musk. First thing they do, they didn't even play.
You understand?
Yeah.
Public works. I mean, just less than 10 years ago, the ANC was making a song and dance about the fact that they are rolling out the best infrastructure program. And I don't know, Zuma's was going to spend 800 billion or whatever it is. They take that and give it to the DA. Right? So I just mentioned those 3. I don't remember the other ministries. Education.
Home Affairs.
Education, the future of our kids. They handed it over to the DA.
While they have a
These guys
bill pending, they give them education.
Yeah, these guys are tired. I'm sorry. You understand? And one is happy with what has happened in Botswana. I wish South Africans can do what the Botswana did to that party that led there for 5 decades. They clapped them. They didn't joke with them. They gave them 4 seats.
Yeah.
Not 40 so that they can maneuver. No, they just say you are out. Actually, they got 0 if you think about it. Because they're not in cabinet. They must just forget. They must go home. Okay? That's what we need to see happen here. Same thing that happened in Mauritius. We need more of that. You can see that your friends there, Frelimo, are refusing to get out of power. Right? SWAPO, same thing. Those elections are contested. I'm not sure what the details are. But the liberation movements are tired.
Yeah, especially in SADC.
No, they're tired. In SADC, they're tired. They were in the trenches, and that has made them very tired. Now they need to hand over a baton to the new generation.
Yeah.
And that's what we need here in South Africa. We'll never tire to call for that. Now, you guys are in the forefront of making that happen or not. So I hope, against hope, that the shenanigans between you, particularly and MK, will not affect your progressive stance that you had originally planned. Right? Because we don't know, if the GNU collapses, who knows? You may end up in government for the 5 years. But I was just saying, don't raise your hopes about that, because these guys got power and they know that they don't deserve it. Right? So they're going to hang on to it. So the best you can do is make sure you have a proper opposition in parliament.
Yeah.
And I think your combination with MK is what will give us that opposition. If you try to go it alone, you're just going to be more of the same. Bring these other guys, work together. I believe it can still happen.
But we are in parliament, eh? I think the public spats might be distorting that reality. That in parliament, we are actually very cooperative.
No, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we would like it to be on a broader level because at the end, what's the point if we work together in parliament but we insult each other in the public? I mean, what's the strategy? I understand Zile's strategy of insulting the GNU. She's campaigning for 2026.
Yeah, she's looking forward.
You understand? And I believe, obviously, I'll be corrected. I'm talking to her on Monday, and I'm going to ask her, that they decided they're going to have a dual strategy. John Steenhuisen is leading a team of ministers and deputy ministers in the GNU. They must work and focus on governance. Zile wants TA to be back in power in all these municipalities in 2026. And to do that, she's got to assure their constituency that they are not a lackey of the ANC.
Yeah.
And
so
to do that, you must insult them every 2 minutes and tell us that this is not even a GNU. I mean, it tells us the opposite of what Balula tells us.
Yeah.
But you have heard even how the ANC has responded. They're just saying, whatever she's saying, we don't care. Because they know that the marriage is fragile. Right? And they're going to keep it together because it suits them at the moment. What suits them? The status quo. Business was very happy to see this collaboration. They knew that was not going to increase the economy. They knew that was not going to, make any dramatic policy changes, but at least it will keep the peace.
Yeah.
So that they can continue to in their bubble of privilege. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
If we were all serious about changing the people's lives, the current configuration would not have been allowed to happen.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that you are happy with the status quo of all those indicators I talked about. Those are terrible indicators by any standard in any country. You understand? We fall below how the country, even our BRICS friends, our economies are growing. You understand? We are at the bottom rank. Then, as if that's not enough, then on corruption, we are ranking number 70 out of 180 countries because we are failing to prosecute even one person.
Yeah.
Out of a state capture report, not one person is in prison.
Individual.
And this report cost R1 billion, and you're telling me that the NPA can't find anything in all those volumes where they can just prosecute one person successfully, just one senior person. And that is part of why this country, is in a sense is not working, because we are stuck in the status quo inertia. And that's what the GNU is about. The GNU is really a holding pattern for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
With the hope that voters will see this is nonsense and vote decisively.
Yeah.
Now, you guys as progressives, you got to ready yourself to be a proper government in waiting. There's no time for what you are doing now in terms of squabbles and jumping ship and leaving this part, leaving part of something that's the same thing, and leaving to go to the other side, and that will also damage the confidence that the society may have on you eventually. I know you don't have to agree with it, but I'm just telling you how generally people may view those fights. Oh, they're all fighting for positions now. It's all going to go belly up. Maybe this GNU is a devil we know. That's going to be the debate now in 5 years. Better the devil we know. Let's vote for the GNU. We don't want that narrative, because that narrative says the black child will continue to drown in a toilet, have no access to health care, be discriminated, for 1976 to repeat itself through the Bella again. And I can go on. The hope of the nation is with you guys in the progressives, and I hope that you'll get it right.
No, thank you. Let's leave it there. It'll be part of the debates in the third NPA, the question of unity, and where do we go from here? But I think thank you for joining us, Dr. JJ Tabane, and we hope that we'll engage on the other platform very soon. I'm well.
Hoping I can't wait to host you there. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much.
Keep up the fight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Let's continue interacting with all of the special edition podcasts of the EFF heading towards the third NPA. And it's 1 week to go. quite excited and that the EFF will continue to exhibit its internal democracy. See you again.